Vanessa Sterling had $12 in her checking account when she made the decision that would put a target on her back. She didn't know it then, standing in line at the downtown cafe with her stomach growling and her phone buzzing with another overdue bill notification. She didn't know that the tattooed stranger in front of her, the one whose card kept declining while everyone groaned impatiently, was the kind of man who remembered debts, the kind who collected them with interest, the kind who, 2 hours later, would return with an army. He came back, 2 hours after she paid for his food, with a convoy, with guards, with car keys worth more than her life. I can't take this. You already did. Park Sung-tae, Mafia royalty, and Vanessa just became collateral. Welcome back, beautiful souls. Real quick, if stories like this give you chills, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for Ebony and Pearl stories. We're building a family here, and I don't want you to miss what happens next. Trust me, you'll regret it. In a city where millions of people walked past each other every day without seeing anything at all, Vanessa Sterling had perfected the art of being invisible. It wasn't hard. All it required was exhaustion, 2 minimum wage jobs, and the kind of bone-deep tiredness that made you forget you'd once had dreams bigger than just surviving. At 26, Vanessa had mastered the choreography. Wake up at 5 a.m. to stock shelves at Sterling Print and copy downtown. Smile at customers who treated her like furniture. Skip lunch because the vending machine was broken and she couldn't afford the cafe across the street anyway. Clock out. Take the bus to her evening gig waitressing at Chen's Noodle House in Koreatown. Smile again. Serve. Clean. Count tips that never quite added up to enough. Go home to an apartment that smelled like mildew and someone else's cooking. Send half her paycheck to her younger siblings in Oakland because their father sure as hell wasn't going to. Sleep 4 hours. Repeat. She'd come to Los Angeles with her mother 7 years ago, back when her mother was still alive and still believed good things happen to good people. They'd left everything behind in Atlanta. Family, friends, the church community that had been her mother's whole world, because the hospital bills were drowning them and California had better treatment options, better opportunities, better hope. The cancer took her mother anyway. 3 years ago now, but the debt remained, a ghost that haunted every paycheck, every declined credit card, every automated call from collection agencies. Vanessa had wanted to study marketing and branding at community college, had dreams of building campaigns that told beautiful stories. But when her mother got sick, those dreams got shelved right next to the textbooks she never got to open. She'd learned to find peace in small things instead. A good book from the library. Street art in the alleys of downtown. The smell of coffee she couldn't afford to buy. She wasn't bitter, just tired. The kind of tired that lived in your bones and made every act of kindness feel like lifting weights. Still, she chose kindness, even when the world rarely gave it back. It was a Tuesday when everything changed. The kind of gray, unremarkable Tuesday that Los Angeles pretended didn't exist between all its sunshine propaganda. Vanessa was on her lunch break from the printing shop, standing in line at the cafe on 3rd Street, mentally calculating whether she could afford the sandwich or if she should just get coffee and call it a meal. That's when she noticed him. The man ahead of her was tall enough that she had to tilt her head back to see his face. He wore all black. Black jeans, black boots, a black leather jacket that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His hair was dark and perfectly styled in that effortless way that definitely wasn't effortless. And his neck. Vanessa caught a glimpse of intricate tattoos climbing up from his collar, disappearing into his jawline like secrets written in ink. He was patting his pockets with increasing frustration, while the cashier, a teenager with blue hair and a bored expression, sighed loudly. "Sir, your card's been declined." Again. The man stared at the register like it had personally offended him. Not embarrassed, not flustered, just irritated, as if the universe itself was malfunctioning. Behind Vanessa, someone groaned. "Come on, man. Some of us have actual jobs to get back to." The stranger's jaw tightened, but he didn't turn around. He just pulled out another card, slid it across the counter. Declined, the cashier announced, louder this time. Vanessa didn't know why she did it. Maybe it was muscle memory from the way her mother used to help strangers at the grocery store, slipping them $20 bills when she thought Vanessa wasn't looking. Maybe it was because he looked exhausted beneath all that controlled stillness, and she recognized that kind of tired in her bones. "I'll cover it," she heard herself say. The cafe went silent. The stranger turned, and for the first time, really looked at her. His gaze was heavy, assessing, the kind of look that felt physical. Not predatory. Something else. Something that made the air between them shift and thicken. 5 full seconds passed. He didn't blink, didn't smile, didn't thank her. The air turned cold, heavy, like she'd just made a deal she didn't understand. Like she'd stepped across an invisible line that couldn't be uncrossed. Then he nodded once, a single, deliberate dip of his chin, took the sandwich from the cashier, and walked out without a word. The door chimed shut behind him. "Okay, that was weird," Blue Hair muttered, already moving on to Vanessa's order. Vanessa paid for her coffee with trembling hands, told herself it meant nothing, and went back to work. Her co-worker Marcus teased her about saving a runway model, but she shrugged it off with a tired smile. She thought it was over. It wasn't. 2 hours later, exactly 2 hours, the ground outside Sterling Print and copy began to vibrate. Vanessa was at the front desk, processing an order for business cards, when she felt it first. A low rumble that traveled up through the floor and into her chest. Like thunder, like an earthquake, like something massive and unstoppable approaching. "You feel that?" Marcus asked, looking up from his computer. The rumble grew louder, deeper. The windows rattled in their frames. Then someone outside screamed. Not a scared scream, an excited one. The kind people made when something shocking and viral-worthy was happening right in front of them. Vanessa walked to the door, her heart already pounding for reasons she couldn't name. When she stepped outside onto the sidewalk, her hands flew to her mouth. The entire street was lined with cars. Not just any cars, blacked-out luxury vehicles that looked like they'd driven straight out of a crime thriller. Sleek SUVs with tinted windows. Sports cars that cost more than houses. And standing between them, arranged like a private army in perfectly tailored suits, were at least 20 men. All of them were watching her, and walking toward her, through the middle of this impossible convoy, was the stranger from the cafe. In daylight, he was even more terrifying, even more beautiful. His tattoos were visible now, crawling up his neck in patterns that looked both elegant and violent. His expression was unreadable, controlled, absolutely certain. He stopped 3 feet away and held out his hand. In his palm were car keys. "For the food you paid for," he said simply, his voice low and accented in a way that made her spine straighten. Vanessa stared at the keys, then at him, then at the brand new luxury SUV parked at the curb, black and gleaming and worth more than she'd earned in 5 years. Her throat went dry. Her hands trembled at her sides. The stranger, this man who'd turned her simple act of kindness into something she couldn't understand, stood waiting, patient as death, while the entire world watched. And Vanessa Sterling, who'd spent 7 years making herself invisible, suddenly felt dangerously, terrifyingly seen. Listen, if you can't stand people who prey on hardworking women just trying to survive, hit that subscribe button right now. Comment what time you're seeing this, because only the real ones who believe kindness shouldn't come with a price are part of this family. Manipulators and predators won't subscribe. But you're different. Prove it. The keys felt like they weighed 1,000 pounds in Vanessa's trembling hand. "I can't accept this," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rumble of idling engines. She thrust the keys back toward him. "I don't even know you." Park Sante didn't move to take them. He just watched her with that same unreadable expression from the cafe, dark eyes assessing, patient, like he had all the time in the world, and she was the only thing worth watching. "You already accepted it," he said quietly. "Not a question. A statement of fact." I paid for a sandwich, Vanessa said, her voice rising with panic. Not this. Not any of this. Around them, his men stood perfectly still, hands clasped in front of them, eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses. They looked like they could break her in half without wrinkling their suits. People on the street had their phones out now, recording everything, whispering to each other in excited bursts. Vanessa felt exposed, naked, like she'd been pulled onto a stage she never auditioned for, performing in a play she didn't know the lines to. Everyone wants something, Sungtae said, tilting his head slightly. What is it you want, Vanessa Sterling? Her blood ran cold. How do you know my name? Something flickered in his eyes. Not quite amusement. Something darker. I make it my business to know. That should have terrified her. It did terrify her. But beneath the fear was something else. A flash of anger, hot and bright, that this stranger thought he could just walk into her life and rearrange it like furniture. I want you to leave me alone, she said, her voice steadier now. She dropped the keys onto the hood of the SUV with a metallic clatter. Keep your car. Keep your whatever this is. I don't want it. For a long moment, Sungtae said nothing. Then, slowly, he picked up the keys and pocketed them. But he didn't step back. Instead, he leaned down slightly, just enough that only she could hear him. You'll change your mind, he murmured. Not a threat. A promise. Then he straightened, turned with fluid grace, and walked back to his convoy. His men moved like shadows, following him in perfect synchronization. Within 60 seconds, every car pulled away from the curb, engines purring like predators, leaving nothing behind but tire marks and the smell of expensive leather. But just before his car turned the corner, Sungtae looked back. It was brief, barely a second, but Vanessa felt the weight of it. Dangerous, curious, inevitable. Then he was gone. Vanessa stood alone on the sidewalk, shaking, while Marcus and half the office stared at her through the window like she'd just been visited by aliens. That night, Vanessa's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. She was lying in bed, still in her work clothes, too exhausted to shower when the notifications started flooding in. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, every social media platform she'd barely used was suddenly exploding. Someone had posted a video of the convoy, of her, of him. The caption read, Park Sungtae spotted downtown with mystery woman? Who is she? It already had 50,000 views. Vanessa's stomach dropped. Girl. Her co-worker Lisa was FaceTiming her, eyes wide with shock. Do you know who that was? Do you have any idea who that man is? No, Vanessa whispered, though she had a sinking feeling she was about to find out. Lisa turned her phone around, showing Vanessa a news article. The headline made her blood freeze. Park Sung-tae, the untouchable Korean Mafia boss who controls the West Coast. There was a photo of him, professional, cold, devastating, in a sharp suit, standing outside what looked like a courthouse. He wasn't smiling. He's not just rich, Ness, Lisa said, her voice urgent. He's dangerous. Like, scary dangerous. His family runs half the underground trade on the West Coast. Guns, protection, I don't even know what else. The police can't touch him. Nobody can. Vanessa's hands went numb. Why would someone like that? She couldn't finish the sentence. I don't know, Lisa said. But girl, you need to be careful. Men like that don't do anything without a reason. After Lisa hung up, Vanessa sat in the dark of her tiny apartment, listening to the sounds of the city outside her window. Sirens, shouting, the distant rumble of traffic. Normal sounds, safe sounds, except nothing felt safe anymore. Park Sung-tae sat in the back of his car, watching the city lights blur past the tinted windows. His lieutenant, Dae-young, sat across from him, silent and waiting. Run the background again, Sung-tae said quietly. Boss, we all ready. Again. Dae-young nodded and pulled out his tablet. Vanessa Sterling, 26, works 2 jobs, printing shop, and a restaurant in Koreatown. Lives alone in a one-bedroom in a building that should have been condemned 5 years ago. Sends money to her siblings every month. No criminal record. No connections. She's nobody. Nobody. The word sat wrong in Sungtae's chest. He'd grown up in a world where kindness was a currency rarer than diamonds. Every smile around him hid a motive. Every gesture of generosity came with strings attached. He'd been betrayed by friends, used by women, hunted by enemies since he was 15. So when a random woman who didn't know him, didn't flinch from him, didn't want anything, paid for his food without demanding anything in return, something inside him broke open. He needed to know why, what she wanted, what she was hiding. But the more his men dug, the more they found nothing. No angle, no agenda, just a tired woman trying to survive. And that made her the most dangerous person he'd ever met. Because Sungtae didn't know what to do with genuine kindness. Didn't know how to calculate it, manipulate it, control it. She refused the car, he said, almost to himself. Yes, boss. No one refuses my gifts. Dae-young hesitated. She's different. Different. Yes, that was the problem. 3 days passed. Vanessa went back to work, kept her head down, avoided social media. The video had mostly died down, replaced by the next viral moment, the next scandal. But she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. It started small. A black car parked across from her apartment building 3 nights in a row. The same man in a suit standing outside the bodega where she bought groceries. A shadow that seemed to follow her on the bus. She told herself she was being paranoid. She wasn't. Sungtae was in a meeting when Dae-young burst through the door, something close to alarm on his usually calm face. Boss, he said urgently, we have a problem. Sungtae looked up from the contract spread across his desk. Speak. The girl you're interested in, Vanessa Sterling. Dae-young pulled up security footage on his tablet. She's in danger. Sungtae was on his feet before Dae-young finished the sentence. Show me. The footage showed a man, mid-40s, disheveled, angry, lurking outside Vanessa's apartment building, watching her windows, following her to work. Who is he? Sungtae's voice was deadly quiet. Brent Lorne, her former manager, fired 3 months ago for harassment. He's been stalking her since. Sungtae's jaw tightened. His hands curled into fists. How long? At least 6 weeks. She filed a police report. They did nothing. Something dark and furious bloomed in Sungtae's chest. He'd grown up watching his mother beaten by men who thought women were property. He'd sworn, at 12 years old, that no woman would ever feel unsafe around him again. And now this girl, this stranger who'd shown him kindness, was being hunted. Find him, Sungtae said, his voice like ice. Bring him to me. Boss. Now, Brent Lorne was dragged into the basement of one of Sungtae's warehouses at 2 a.m., duct tape over his mouth, hands zip-tied behind his back. He was crying before they even sat him in the chair. Sungtae stood in the shadows watching. He'd changed out of his suit into dark jeans and a black shirt, sleeves rolled up to his elbows. The tattoos on his forearms seemed to move in the flickering fluorescent light. Dae-young ripped the tape off Brent's mouth. Please, Brent gasped immediately. Please, I don't know what this is about. Vanessa Sterling, Sungtae said quietly, stepping into the light. Brent's face went white. I didn't do anything. You slashed her tires. Twice. Sungtae's voice was calm, clinical. You filed false complaints to get her fired. You showed up outside her apartment drunk at midnight. You sent her threatening messages for 3 months. She rejected me, Brent stammered. I just wanted to talk to her. I wasn't going to. Sungtae moved faster than Brent could process. One moment, he was across the room. The next, his hand was wrapped around Brent's throat, squeezing just hard enough to make breathing difficult. You made her afraid, Sungtae said, his voice dropping to a whisper. You made her feel unsafe in her own home. Brent's eyes bulged. He tried to speak, but couldn't. Sante saw his mother in that moment. Saw her cowering in the corner of their tiny soul apartment while his father loomed over her. Saw the bruises she tried to hide with makeup. Heard her crying through the walls when she thought he was asleep. He'd been 12 when he made the decision. Too young to stop his father with words, so he'd used a kitchen knife instead. One slash across his father's arm, deep enough to scar, and a promise spoken in the same deadly whisper he used now. Touch her again, and I'll kill you. His father never did, and Sante never stopped protecting women who couldn't protect themselves. He released Brent's throat. The man gasped for air, sobbing. You're going to tell me everything, Sante said, or what I just did will feel like mercy. It took 20 minutes for Brent to break completely, and when he did, the truth spilled out like poison. I was paid, Brent choked out. A man, Korean guy, found me at a bar. Said he'd give me $10,000 if I kept tabs on her. Followed her. Scared her a little. He said it was just to make someone jealous. I swear I didn't know. Sante's blood turned to ice. What was his name? Kong Jin-soo. The room went silent. Even Dae-young inhaled sharply. Kong Jin-soo, rival boss. The man who'd been trying to find Sangtae's weaknesses for months, trying to undermine his territory, his businesses, his reputation. The man who somehow knew about Vanessa before Sangtae had even figured out what she meant to him. When did he contact you? Sangtae asked, his voice deadly calm. A week ago, right after that video went viral. He saw you with her and thought. Brent stopped, realizing he was confessing to something much bigger than harassment. Sangtae turned to Dae-young. Khan thinks she's my weakness. Yes, boss. Which means he'll come for her. Yes. Sangtae looked back at Brent with cold eyes. You're going to leave the city tonight. You're going to disappear. And if I ever hear you've contacted Vanessa Sterling again, if I even hear you've thought about her, I'll find you. Do you understand? Brent nodded frantically. Get him out of my sight. Vanessa knew something was wrong when she came home from her evening shift and found a man in a suit standing outside her apartment building. Not hiding, not pretending, just standing there watching her approach. She stopped on the sidewalk, her heart hammering. Who are you? Ma'am, I'm here to ensure your safety, the man said in accented English. Korean accent. Mr. Park sent me. Mr. Park. Then it clicked. Sangtae. The man nodded. Rage flooded through Vanessa's exhaustion. She pushed past the guard, stormed into her building, and pulled out her phone with shaking hands. She didn't have Sangtae's number, but apparently he had hers, because a text came through before she could even figure out how to contact him. Unknown. The man outside is for your protection. Don't send him away. She called the number. He picked up on the first ring. Stop following me, she said immediately, not bothering with a greeting. Stop sending your men to watch me. Stop whatever this is. No. His voice was calm, infuriatingly calm. I didn't ask for your protection. I didn't ask for any of this. You're in danger. I've been in danger my whole life, Vanessa snapped. I've survived just fine without you. Not this kind of danger. Then tell me what's going on. Stop treating me like some damsel who needs saving and talk to me like an adult. There was a pause. Then where are you? Home. I'm coming to you. No, but he'd already hung up. Sangtae arrived 30 minutes later. Alone this time, no convoy, no theatrics. Just him in dark jeans and a leather jacket, looking less like a mafia boss and more like a man who hadn't slept in days. Vanessa met him in the hallway outside her apartment, arms crossed, refusing to let him inside. You had men following me, she said. For how long? Since the day at the cafe. Why? Because I needed to know who you were. You mean you needed to make sure I wasn't a threat? Yes. He didn't deny it, didn't soften it, just stated it like a fact. And now? Now that you know I'm nobody, just a woman working 2 jobs to survive. Why are you still here? Sungtae looked at her for a long moment. In the dim hallway light, his face looked softer somehow, the sharp edges less threatening. Your ex-manager has been stalking you, he said quietly. Brent Lorne. He slashed your tires, filed complaints to get you fired, followed you home. Vanessa's stomach dropped. How do you? I know everything about the people who threaten what's mine. I'm not yours. No, he agreed, but you're under my protection now, whether you want it or not. Why? Her voice broke on the word. Why do you care what happens to me? Sungtae stepped closer, close enough that she could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the tension in his jaw, the way his hands flexed like he wanted to reach for her but didn't. I don't know, he said, and for the first time, she heard something real in his voice, something vulnerable. But I do. The honesty of it rattled her more than the convoy, more than the guards, more than anything else he'd done. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression changed, something dark flickering across his features. What? Vanessa asked. Sungtae looked up at her, and she saw something in his eyes she hadn't seen before. Fear. Not for himself. For her. The morning you paid for my food, he said slowly. There was a planned hit, an assassination attempt. Vanessa's blood went cold. Kang Jin-soo's men were waiting outside the cafe. They had a clear shot, but when you stepped in front of me to pay, when you blocked their line of sight, they hesitated. They thought you were with me. That hesitation gave my men time to identify the threat. He took a breath. You saved my life, Vanessa, and you didn't even know it. If this story has you hooked and you want to see where it goes next, just hit that subscribe button. No pressure, but I promise you won't regret it. Drop a comment and let me know you're still with me. Vanessa stared at Sungtae, his words echoing in the narrow hallway. You saved my life, and you didn't even know it. I didn't save anyone, she whispered. I just paid for a sandwich. And that's why you're in danger now. His voice was quiet, edged with something that sounded like regret. Kang, Jin-soo thinks you're important to me, which means he'll use you to get to me. Then tell him I'm not. Tell him I'm nobody. It's too late for that. Sungtae's jaw tightened. The moment that video went viral, the moment he saw me with you, you became a target. Vanessa felt the walls closing in. This couldn't be real. She was just a woman trying to survive, trying to pay bills, trying to keep her head above water. She didn't belong in this world of violence and power and men who treated human lives like chess pieces. I need you to trust me, Sungtae said. I don't even know you. I know, but right now I'm the only thing standing between you and a man who'll hurt you just to hurt me. The certainty in his voice terrified her. But beneath the terror was something else, a strange, unwanted sense of safety. Like for the first time in years, someone was actually looking out for her. She hated that feeling almost as much as she needed it. What happens now? She asked quietly. Now I make sure no one touches you, Sungtae said. Ever. The next 3 days were chaos. It started small. Vanessa came home from her morning shift to find her apartment door ajar, the lock broken. Her few valuables, her laptop, her mother's jewelry were gone. But worse than that, her clothes had been slashed, her photos torn, a message spray painted on her bedroom wall in red. Stay away from Park. She called the police. They took a report and told her they'd look into it. She knew they wouldn't. The next day, her manager at the printing shop pulled her aside with an apologetic expression. Vanessa, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to let you go. Corporate's downsizing. Downsizing. She'd worked there for 3 years. Rick, please, I need this job. My hands are tied. But his eyes said something else. His eyes said he was scared. That night, she checked her bank account and found it empty, completely drained. Her rent payment, her grocery money, the money she'd saved to send to her siblings gone. She sat on the floor of her destroyed apartment and finally let herself cry. Not gentle tears, but the kind of sobbing that came from a place so deep she'd forgotten it existed. The kind that shook her entire body and left her gasping for air. She felt cursed, like everything she touched turned to ash. She didn't know she was just collateral damage in a war she'd never asked to be part of. Sante found out about the break-in before Vanessa even called him. His men had been watching, had seen Kang's people leave her building, and he'd never felt rage like this before. Cold, calculated, the kind that didn't explode but simmered, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. He showed up at her apartment at midnight, took one look at the destruction, at her sitting on the floor with tear-stained cheeks and empty eyes, and made a decision. "Pack a bag," he said. Vanessa looked up at him, too exhausted to argue. "What?" "You're coming with me." "I'm not going anywhere with you." "Yes, you are." He crouched down in front of her, his voice gentle but firm. "You're not safe here." Kong won't stop until he's made his point. "So you're coming to my penthouse where I can protect you." "I don't want your protection." "I don't care what you want." His eyes met hers. "You saved my life. Now I'm saving yours. That's not negotiable." She wanted to fight him, wanted to stand her ground and tell him she could handle this herself. But the truth was she couldn't. She was drowning and he was offering her a lifeline. Even if that lifeline came with strings, she didn't understand. "Just until this is over," she said quietly. "Just until it's over," he agreed. Sante's penthouse was everything her apartment wasn't. Spacious, clean, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering city. Furniture that looked like it cost more than she made in a year. It smelled like expensive cologne and leather and money. Vanessa stood in the middle of the living room, feeling completely out of place. "Guest room is down the hall," Sante said, setting her small duffel bag on the couch. "There's food in the kitchen. Security is outside the door. You need anything, ask." "Why are you doing this?" Vanessa asked. He paused, his back to her. "I told you." "No, I mean really. Why do you care?" Sante turned to face her, and for a moment, she saw past the Mafia boss exterior to something deeper, something lonely. "Because no one should feel unsafe in their own home," he said quietly. "And because you didn't have to help me, but you did anyway." Over the next few days, Vanessa watched Sante in a way she hadn't before. Watched him cook dinner, actual food, not takeout, and place it in front of her without a word. Watched him fix the broken strap on her work bag with hands that were surprisingly gentle. Watched him take a phone call in Korean, his voice sharp and commanding, then hang up and ask her softly if she needed anything. And one morning, she woke to find fresh flowers on the kitchen counter. Not expensive roses, but sunflowers. Her mother's favorite. "How did you know?" she asked when he came out of his office. "I did my research," he said simply. "You researched my dead mother's favorite flowers?" "I visited her grave yesterday." He said it like it was normal. Like everyone did that. It looked neglected. "I had it cleaned. Put fresh flowers there too." Vanessa felt something crack open in her chest. Something she'd been keeping carefully locked away. "You didn't have to do that," she whispered. "I know." And that was the problem. He didn't have to do any of this. But he was anyway. And Vanessa was starting to realize that Park Sante was far more dangerous to her heart than Kang Jin-soo could ever be to her life. It happened on a Thursday night. Vanessa had insisted on going to her evening shift at the restaurant despite Sante's protests. She needed normalcy, needed to feel like herself again, even for a few hours. He'd sent 2 guards with her, but she convinced them to wait outside. She was walking to the bus stop after her shift, exhausted and smelling like soy sauce, when the van pulled up beside her. It happened fast, too fast. The door slid open. Hands grabbed her. A cloth pressed over her mouth that smelled chemical and wrong. She tried to scream, tried to fight, but her limbs went heavy and the world tilted sideways. The last thing she saw before everything went black was the night sky above Los Angeles. Stars she could barely see through the light pollution, and a single thought cutting through the darkness. Sante was right. Sometimes a story grabs you and won't let go. If that's where you're at right now, do me a favor and subscribe. And comment, I'm hooked. I need to know you're feeling this as much as I am. Sante knew something was wrong before his guards even called. He was in a meeting with his accountants when the feeling hit him. Cold, sharp, visceral. Like someone had reached into his chest and squeezed. He'd learned to trust that instinct years ago. It had kept him alive through 3 assassination attempts and 2 coups within his own organization. His phone rang. Dae-young's name flashed on the screen. She's gone, Dae-young said before Sung-tae could speak. Taken outside the restaurant. White van. No plates. The room went silent. Not because Sung-tae yelled or threw anything, but because the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees, and everyone who'd worked for him long enough knew what that meant. Park Sung-tae was about to go to war. Shut down every bridge out of the city, he said, his voice deadly calm as he stood. Close the ports. I want every warehouse, every safe house, every location Kang Jin-soo has ever touched surrounded in the next 30 minutes. No one moves. No one breathes. Find her. He hung up and walked out of the room, already dialing another number. Within 20 minutes, the city's underworld ground to a halt. Every exit blocked. Every known associate of Kang's operation picked up and questioned. The police stayed out of it. They knew better than to interfere when the real powers were moving. It took 43 minutes for Sung-tae's men to locate the warehouse in the industrial district where Vanessa was being held. It took him 7 minutes to get there. And when he walked through those warehouse doors with 20 of his most lethal soldiers behind him, he looked less like a man and more like death itself. Vanessa woke up with her head pounding and her wrists zip-tied to a metal chair. The warehouse around her was dark except for a few flickering overhead lights. It smelled like rust and motor oil and fear. Across from her stood Brent, looking pale and terrified. And beside him, a man in an expensive suit who could only be Kang Jin-soo. He was older than Sung-tae, maybe mid-40s, with slick back hair and a smile that made Vanessa's skin crawl. She's awake, Kang said, sounding pleased. Good. I was starting to think your little friend gave you too much chloroform, Brent. I didn't know you were going to kidnap her, Brent stammered. You said we were just going to scare her. And you believed me? Kang laughed. Americans are so naive. Vanessa's vision cleared enough to focus on Kang. What do you want? What I want, Kang said, walking closer, is to remind Park Sung-tae that he's not untouchable, that he doesn't own the city. And you, my dear, are the perfect reminder. I'm nothing to him. Oh, I don't think that's true. Kang pulled out his phone, showing her the viral video of the convoy. A man like Sung-tae doesn't show up with an army for just anyone. Before Vanessa could respond, the warehouse doors exploded inward. Not opened, exploded. The metal shrieking as it was torn off its hinges. And through the smoke and chaos walked Sung-tae. He was still in his suit, but he'd lost the jacket somewhere. His sleeves were rolled up, his tattoos on full display, and the look in his eyes was something Vanessa had never seen before. Pure, controlled fury. His men fanned out behind him, guns drawn, moving with military precision. Sung-tae, Kang said, spreading his arms theatrically. Right on time. I was just getting to know your little cafe girl. Let her go, Sung-tae said quietly. Now. Or what? You'll start a war over some woman you met a week ago. Kang laughed. She's not worth it. Sung-tae's expression didn't change. You have 3 seconds. You're bluffing. Sung-tae moved. One moment, he was standing 10 feet away. The next, he had Kang slammed against a support beam. Forearm pressed against his throat, violence radiating off him in waves. I don't bluff, Sung-tae said, his voice like ice. And you just made the last mistake of your life. What happened next was chaos. Kang's men tried to intervene, but Sung-tae's soldiers were faster, better trained, more loyal. Gunshots rang out, but they were controlled, precise. This wasn't a massacre. This was an execution of power. Brent tried to run. He made it 5 steps before one of Sungtae's men caught him and threw him to the ground in front of Vanessa. Please, Brent sobbed, looking up at her. Vanessa! Please tell them I didn't mean for this to happen. I just needed the money. Please. Vanessa looked down at him. This man who'd made her life hell, who'd stalked her, threatened her, sold her out to a monster, and felt nothing but cold clarity. You never deserved my forgiveness, she said quietly, and you're not getting it now. Sungtae appeared beside her, cutting through her zip ties with a knife. His hands were gentle despite the violence, still humming in the air around him. Can you walk? He asked. I think so. But when she tried to stand, her legs buckled. The chloroform, the fear, the adrenaline, it all caught up at once. Sungtae caught her before she hit the ground, then lifted her into his arms like she weighed nothing. Bridal style, one arm under her knees, one supporting her back. I've got you, he murmured. Vanessa clung to his shirt, her fingers twisting in the fabric as he carried her toward the exit. She was shaking, couldn't stop shaking, and the only thing that felt real was the steady beat of his heart against her ear. You came for me, she whispered. Sungtae looked down at her, and something in his expression softened. You paid for my food, he said. I'll spend the rest of my life paying you back. Behind them, Kong was being dragged away by Sungtae's men. Brent was crying on the warehouse floor. But Vanessa didn't look back. She just held on to the man who'd turned her world upside down and somehow made her feel safer than she'd felt in years. Vanessa woke in Sungtae's penthouse, in the guest bedroom she'd been staying in. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting everything gold. Her head still ached, and her wrists were bruised where the zip ties had been, but she was alive. She turned her head and froze. Sungtae was sitting in the chair beside her bed. He was still in his suit from last night, wrinkled now, the white shirt stained with what looked like blood, though she didn't think it was his. His head was tilted back against the chair, eyes closed, arms crossed over his chest. He'd stayed with her all night. Vanessa studied his face in the morning light. The sharp line of his jaw, the tattoos climbing up his neck, the exhaustion etched into every feature. Without the intensity of his gaze, without the controlled violence he carried like armor, he looked almost vulnerable, almost human. Sungtae, she whispered. His eyes snapped open instantly, fully alert, like he'd been waiting for her voice even in sleep. I'm here, he said. And somehow, those 2 words meant everything. If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't just a story. It's something you can't walk away from. Hit subscribe and comment I'm here so I know you're writing this out with me till the end.